Discover the incredible journey of a black maid who transformed millionaire twins' lives forever. Clara Williams stood in the palatial living room of the Thompson twins' estate, her fingers brushing against the intricate carvings of a forgotten era. The gleaming marble floors echoed with the laughter of affluent guests who had transformed the Thompsons' tech startup launch into a glamorous affair. Yet Clara felt out of place, a ghost in a world of high society, her dreams buried beneath layers of dust and self-doubt. As she polished the ornate chandelier, her heart raced with the weight of unrealized ambitions. Schemes of a consulting firm, innovative applications she imagined late at night. For years she'd been underestimated, a mere maid among millionaires. Each suggestion she had ever whispered was met with condescension. A pit formed in her stomach. Did they know how many sleepless nights she had spent studying software coding, analyzing case studies in technology? Doubt coiled around her like a snake. Should she remain hidden or step into the light and risk losing her place in their world? Clara stepped back, surveying the room through a veil of uncertainty. The twins, Alex and Ben, were still those little boys she once babysat, but now they were tech moguls drowning in scandal. Their business was unraveling, and she could sense the palpable fear emanating from the closed doors of their office. They had moved from wide-eyed curiosity to frantic desperation, the perfect storm brewing. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the evening dragged on, Clara's thoughts twisted in knots. The twins, once so full of potential, now bore the weight of expectations. They were losing their edge, their empire crumbling. And amid their chaos, their desperation became painfully clear. Yet she hesitated to step in, fearing her own inadequacies. What could a maid offer to save them? Was this the moment she should show her hand, or was it better to stay invisible? A shiver slid down her spine as she recalled the moment Alex caught her studying a tech manual late at night. The look in his eyes, part disbelief, part intrigue, had sparked a flicker of hope. But doubt dashed any enthusiasm. They wouldn't take her seriously, would they? As tension swirled, an undeniable truth emerged. Each suggestion she had made, all the ideas stifled inside her, could change everything. But with the stakes rising, so did tradition and privilege. How could she bridge that gap? The unease weighed heavy as she displayed silent resistance against the embedded walls that contorted their shared history. Clara felt small, thrust into a spotlight she never sought. It was then that an unexpected family secret unraveled before her, a puzzle piece that could rewrite everything she believed about herself, intertwining her existence with the Thompsons in a way she never could have foreseen. The gravity of this revelation wrapped around her, straining her psyche. Would discovering the truth lead them toward reconciliation and respect, or would it generate an insurmountable chasm? Clara stood at the crossroads of confrontation, torn between loyalty to her roots and the desire for acknowledgement. The raging storm of emotions flooded her mind, drowning out reason. Each moment stretched, teetering closer to disaster. She couldn't help but wonder, was liberation within reach or only more heartbreak ahead? As the last guests trickled out of the mansion, Clara found herself alone in the vast silence that filled the Thompson estate. The enormity of the evening loomed around her like the heavy chandelier above, its light dulled in the aftermath of the celebration. The air was charged with the echoes of laughter, now ghostly, reminding her of the vibrant potential that hung so precariously in the balance. She couldn't escape the gripping realization that beneath the facade of wealth there lay an urgent need, a void that mirrored her own unvoiced dreams. Clara stood before a mirror in the dimly lit hallway, her own reflection revealing a woman at war with herself. The maid's uniform felt like a costume, a barrier separating her from the person she longed to be, a person who could reject the shadows of doubt, armed not only with intellect, but the licentiation of belief in her own worth. As she gazed into her eyes, determination stirred. What if she were to confront the twins the next day, presenting her thoughts and ideas? The thought sent a tremor of anxiety through her. But what could go wrong? Their business was unraveling. Desperation could open doors that had long been barred. Clara felt the spark of courage flickering, drawing her closer to an edge she had avoided for too long. A plan began to unfurl in her mind, simple yet brazen. A data analytics proposal that she had researched meticulously over countless nights. Could it be the salve the twins needed? That night she barely slept, lost in thoughts about her approach. Amidst the anxiety of potential rejection, excitement surged at the possibility of contributing to something greater than herself. As dawn broke, Clara set to work, preparing her presentation with laser focus. For the first time, she allowed herself to envision the thrumming heart of her ambitions, wrapping them in tangible form. Her fingers danced over the keyboard as she crafted slides filled with graphs, charts, and compelling narratives. It wasn't simply about saving the business, it was about reclaiming her own identity, a catalyst for change among the wreckage of unfulfilled dreams. Yet beneath the palpable enthusiasm resided a gnawing doubt, casting a shadow over her preparations. Would they dismiss her again? The memories of previous interactions resurfaced, each laced with begrudging laughter, that unwelcome reminder of her place as an outsider. As noon approached, she gathered her printed notes, steeling herself for what lay ahead. It was time to break free from the chains of her insecurities. Clara navigated the sprawling halls of the estate, each step echoing her resolve. She paused outside the door to the twins' office, her heart pounding, the world narrowing around her. Taking a breath, she knocked softly. A moment of silence followed, and then the door creaked open. Alex and Ben stood before her, expressions flitting between surprise and confusion. Could she breach the distance that years of hierarchy had established? "Clara," Ben greeted, unsure what to expect, his eye scanning her expectantly. "It's important," Clara stated, adrenaline sharpening her voice. She stepped forward, resolved to claim her voice. "There are things we need to discuss." The air became thick with anticipation, tension rising as Clara prepared to unveil the proposal that could either elevate her or lead to her undoing. She sensed the vulnerability in their eyes, a reflection of her own. The stakes had never been higher, and every beat of her heart danced between despair and hope. As the door slowly closed behind her, sealing all doubt outside, Clara understood. This was the moment she had been waiting for, and she was no longer willing to let fear dictate her narrative. Before she could utter a word, a sharp sound shattered the fragile atmosphere. It was the unmistakable ring of her phone, a connection to a whirlwind outside the confines of the estate, a reminder of the life she had known. Perhaps the secrets of the past would intertwine with her bold venture, reshaping not just her future, but the fate of the Thompsons. What awaited on the other end of that line could change everything. The phone's incessant ringing felt like a jolt of electricity, pulling Clara from the tempest of her thoughts. With a quickness born of necessity, she fumbled for her device, nearly dropping it in her haste. The name flashing on the screen sent a wave of urgency through her veins. Martha, her younger sister. Their connection, though often strained by distance and time, had always been a channel of clarity amidst chaos. "Clara, you won't believe what I just found out." Martha's voice crackled through the receiver, a melody of excitement that made Clara's heart quicken. "Remember the old files from Mom's attic? I think I stumbled onto something huge, about our family, about our history." Clara felt her focus waver. The bones of her family's past were buried deep, too painful to excavate at the moment. However, her resolve was shored up by the thought of the impending meeting. "Martha, not now. Clara, wait!" Her sister interrupted, an edge of desperation in her voice. "I've found documents that could change everything. It could bring us the clarity we've been searching for, but I don't fully understand it." The promise of revelation tugged at Clara, but so did the weight of her present mission. "Can this wait? I have a meeting that could really change things for me." Silence lingered on the line, a pause thick with unspoken understanding. Clara could almost hear Martha's thoughts racing. They both strived to transcend the circumstances of their upbringing, but the weight of heritage was a constant pull. "Just promise me you'll look at it when you get a chance. It could explain so much." The urgency in Martha's voice made Clara's stomach knot with both concern and the push of familial loyalty. But for now, she would have to step into her own tumultuous waters. "I promise. I can't let this opportunity slip away. I have to do this." With that final note, she hung up, steeling her nerves as resolve set in. Clara turned her attention back to the twins. The gravity of the moment pressed down upon her, a fusion of vulnerability and ambition. As she began her pitch, the words fell succinctly from her lips, buoyed by prepared slides that illustrated her insights into their dying business. Clara watched their expressions, searching for hints of understanding or surprise. The stakes felt monumental, her sense of self-value in balance as she spoke of analytics, possible market trends, and the understated genius tucked away in data. Alex leaned forward, clearly intrigued, while Ben's brow furrowed in thought. "You've really put a lot of work into this," Alex finally said, deepening the wavering hope within Clara. "But where did it come from?" A truth tremored at her core. She could claim the hours of research and sleepless nights, but the raw nerve that coursed through her proposition was her need, her desperation, to be seen. "I've developed an understanding of analytics through my own studies. It's what I want to do. It's who I am," Clara declared with quiet ferocity. The fear that had once paralyzed her dissolved in the warmth of conviction. Ben exchanged a glance with Alex, a conversation vibrating in silence. Was this the moment they saw her as more than a maid? But with that question, another arose. Could she handle the realities of rejection sewn into their potentially reluctant acceptance? The intensity of their scrutiny felt like an unraveling thread, both fraught with opportunity and peril. Just then, Ben spoke. "We'll need to discuss this further." A swell of anticipation flooded Clara. Had she truly initiated a transformation, not just for the twins, but for herself as well? As the meeting came to a close and dismissive cues hung in the air, her adrenaline faltered. She wasn't done. Echoes of unresolved family ties and self-doubt throbbed at the base of her resolve. How could she harness the strength of her family's story, now intertwined with her awakening ambition? Was the past an anchor, or could it be a sail? With the twins on the cusp of change, Clara was determined to explore the depths of both her history and her future. Before she could step out of the room, Ben's voice broke through her reverie. "Clara, you can't keep us in the dark about your personal motivations. It's crucial." This was it, the chance to confront not just the twins, but the deep-seated doubts that held her captive. Clara paused, heart racing, aware that the next words could redefine everything. Clara felt the weight of Ben's gaze settle upon her like a thick fog, heavy with expectation. This was the moment she had foreseen, yet dreaded, where her truth must break the surface. The air crackled with her silent turmoil, the paradox of transparency battling her innate instinct to protect. What if they dismissed her? What if the real Clara, the one who struggled to rearrange dreams from the remnants of expectations, collapsed under their scrutiny? But as she looked into Ben's eyes, she sensed openness, a flicker of curiosity that hinted at acceptance rather than ridicule. I've always wanted more than just being here, serving. I yearned to create something of value, to use what I've learned. Her voice trembled, but resonated with a truth she had buried deeper than any family legacy. Alex nodded, an indication of understanding rather than judgment. We want to help you, Clara, but we need to know what drives you. The honesty of their interest revitalized her spirit. She took a breath, courage blooming despite the cacophony of memories pushing against her. It was time to dissect the narratives that had formed her, and, more importantly, the ones that were yet to unfold. What do I really want? She mused, speaking not only to them, but to her own inner voice grappling for clarity. I want to prove that I can be more, that my background isn't a chain, but a bridge to something great, she continued, her resolve solidifying. Every day, I watch you both make decisions that impact lives in ways that matter. I want to be a part of that. I want to influence real change. But how do we know it's not just a fleeting impulse? Ben countered, his expression cautioning her against naive ambition. What's your plan? What do you want from us? An impulse surged forward, and Clara felt her mind racing. I know the analytics industry inside out. I've studied market behavior. I want to develop a comprehensive strategy that doesn't just focus on profit, but enriches lives. Their faces transformed. Interest morphed into scrutiny once more, as apprehension cloaked Ben's brow. That's great, but there's a vast distance between theory and execution. The statement hit more deeply than Clara anticipated. The reality of fiercely battling both external doubts and internal fears stagnated her ambition for a moment. The remnants of fading doubt whispered dangers of taking the leap into the unknown. But then a memory sparked. Her fumbled moments in the attic with Martha, long nights sifting through the past. If she could face the shadows of her heritage, surely she could vanquish the fears that loomed ahead. I'll prove myself, she declared, her voice brazen. You can allow me to run a pilot project, a trial for my analytics methods. You'll see the potential firsthand. The room stayed silent for a moment too long, air thick with deliberation. Clara's heart thudded against her ribs as she grappled with uncertainty. It was as if she had thrust a dagger forward, hoping it might compel them to action. Finally, Alex's smile cut through the tension. That could actually work, Clara. Let's flesh out this idea and make it happen. Tension unraveled slightly, but Ben's contemplation still cast a shadow over Clara's excitement. This will require time and effort, Clara. Are you sure you're ready to commit fully? This isn't a game. Absolutely, she said, her heartbeat sinking with her newfound assertiveness. I'm ready to embrace this role as something more. I won't let my past dictate my future any longer. Their agreement felt like a pivot point, the wheels of something great beginning to turn. Yet shadows lingered. Martha's documents hung in her thoughts like a specter. How would this progress clash with the yearning to discover her family's history? The duality of commitments sat uneasily in her mind. What if she uncovered truths that could reshape her perception after all this? The urge to delve into her family's past lay at odds with her present. How could she balance these two worlds? Clara, Ben interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Have you considered the implications of your family legacy? What if it connects to what you're trying to achieve? His question stung. The stakes were not just her career, but the very essence of who she was. As Ben's inquiry confirmed the intertwining of history and ambition, a new urgency consumed her to confront both, the burgeoning professional life before her and the shadows waiting in the attic. The choice was clear. The pilot project was just the beginning. She would have to weave her family's history into her own narrative. Let's talk more, soon, Clara asserted, pressing them toward further discussion, fueled by determination and vulnerability. As the meeting wrapped up, a new fire ignited within her. She had taken a step into the unknown, but paths carved under uncertainty often lead to the brightest destinations. Yet, with Martha's secret still simmering, Clara felt that her journey was just beginning. What revelations awaited when she faced the attic again? Was her family's past a source of inspiration or a distraction? The duality of commitments sat uneasily in her mind. What if she uncovered truths that could reshape her perception after all this? The urge to delve into her family's past lay at odds with her present. How could she balance these two worlds? Clara, Ben interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Have you considered the implications of your family legacy? What if it connects to what you're trying to achieve? His question stung. The stakes were not just her career, but the very essence of who she was. As Ben's inquiry confirmed the intertwining of history and ambition, a new urgency consumed her to confront both, the burgeoning professional life before her and the shadows waiting in the attic. The choice was clear. The pilot project was just the beginning. She would have to weave her family's history into her own narrative. Let's talk more, soon, Clara asserted, pressing them toward further discussion, fueled by determination and vulnerability. As the meeting wrapped up, a new fire ignited within her. She had taken a step into the unknown, but paths carved under uncertainty often lead to the brightest destinations. Yet, with Martha's secret still simmering, Clara felt that her journey was just beginning. What revelations awaited when she faced the attic again? Was her family's past a source of inspiration or a distraction? The future shimmered with potential as she braced for both her project and the monumental family truths ahead. The hum of impending opportunity buzzed in Clara's veins as she left the meeting, each step echoing with a newfound sense of purpose. But the anticipation was soon punctured by the weight of uncertainty lurking behind her. Making a name for herself through the pilot project would not just demand her strategic thinking and analytical prowess. It would require a rigorous encounter with the ghosts of her past. That evening, the shadows in her attic appeared more daunting than usual. Clara could picture the stacks of documents waiting patiently, loaded with truths about heredity and legacy. The duality of her ambitions pressed against the echoes of familial expectations. Would untangling these riddles provide clarity or further complicate her already intricate tapestry of personal reinvention? Clara ascended the creaking staircase slowly, the dim light of a single bulb overhead scarcely enough to banish the darkness below. It was a contradiction she felt keenly. The attic represented both opportunity and confinement. Each document she uncovered could either propel her forward or shackle her to past disappointments. Taking a deep breath, she approached the tallest stack, her hands brushing against the worn corners of the papers. "What do you conceal?" Clara whispered to herself, her voice nearly swallowed by the stillness. She hesitated, fingers quivering. The anxiety of unearthing truths gnawed at her, but the desire to define her own narrative propelled her onward. Delving deep into her family history would ground her in authenticity. She needed to know from whence she came, not just for understanding, but for the decisions she would soon make. Clara picked up the first document, the weathered yellow pages whispering tales of her ancestors. Her heart raced as she scanned the text, various names and dates cascading off the pages like water spilling from a cracked vessel. Each name had a story and memories she couldn't yet grasp. There was a familiar sensation in her chest as she began piecing together stories of struggle and resilience, echoing her own desires for change. Hours slipped by, and as Clara's eyes adjusted to the low light, she found reference to a figure within her lineage who had fought against the constraints of societal expectations. A woman who had commanded respect in a time when it seemed virtually impossible. A flicker of connection ignited within her. Perhaps this ancestor was more than just a distant relative. She could be a catalyst for Clara's ambitions. Her journey wasn't easy, but it was remarkable, Clara murmured, feeling her own fire kindling. I can take inspiration from her, use it as a stepping stone while crafting my own path. As dawn broke, sunlight spilled into the attic, casting golden rays across the chaotic collection of papers. Sitting amidst the remnants of her family, Clara felt a surge of clarity. This layered quest for identity was not merely about changing her professional life or proving herself to Ben and Alex. It was about honoring the struggles and victories of those who came before her. Each paper, each struggle bore the imprint of resilience she could channel into her own project. With a renewed sense of urgency, Clara gathered the documents that resonated with her, vowing not to let her heritage pull her down, but instead to lift her upward. The amalgamation of family history with her aspirations now felt like a potent elixir of purpose. But as Clara turned to leave the attic, a particularly old envelope caught her eye, sealed tight and unmarked. It stirred a sensation of premonition, a whisper in the recesses of her mind suggesting that it might contain something transformative. What could it reveal? What lay hidden within its depth? The uncertainty ignited her curiosity and fear in equal measures. As she hesitated at the threshold, Clara realized this was more than a simple project. It was an unveiling of self. The way forward demanded not only her creativity and tenacity, but also courage to confront the truths her family had enshrined in silence. Time to uncover it all, Clara breathed, reaching for the envelope. She was ready to face whatever might lie ahead. Would it reshape her ambitions or affirm them? With the pilot project looming and the legacy of her family beckoning, Clara felt the dual forces of the past and future converging. What would the discovery reveal about her identity as she navigated her family's history? The moment of confrontation was near, and the answers would either empower her or demand even greater sacrifice. Clara's heart raced at the thought of the unknown waiting to unfold. Clara felt the cool, worn paper in her hands, the envelope heavy with implications. She was teetering on the edge of revelation, caught between fear of what it might contain and desire for the clarity it could bring. The anticipation was a living thing, igniting her instincts and pushing her toward the unknown. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal, the quiet rip of paper echoing like the snap of a starting gun. Inside, she found a single sheet, folded over 4 times. As she unfolded it, Clara's breath grew shallow, revealing not just another document, but a letter, an intimate correspondence that hinted at secrets buried deep in her family's past. The letter spoke of dreams deferred, economic struggles, and choices made under the weight of expectation. An ancestor's regrets spilled out in carefully penned sentences, each stroke of a pen laced with longing and defiance. It recounted a life lived in pursuit of personal freedom, albeit marred by the relentless pull of duty. A wave of empathy washed over Clara as she recognized the stark parallels to her own life. The pressure to succeed, the weight of familial obligation pressing at her back. She read on, feeling as if a forgotten story was unfolding, resonating with her very being. This woman had fought countless battles, ones that rippled down through the generations. And as Clara absorbed these words, she felt the significance of understanding them. Time melted away as she absorbed her ancestors' struggles, and a question took root. What if these struggles were the very foundation of her own fight for success? Could Clara mold these histories into her motivation, using the very weight of the past to propel her forward? With newfound resolve, she began to visualize her project. It was about more than just implementing strategic initiatives or meeting metrics. It was about weaving the narrative of her lineage into the framework of her goals. She envisioned showcasing these stories, elevating voices that had long been silenced, infusing her work with authenticity and resonance. That night, surrounded by the remnants of family legacies, she drafted her proposal. Clara poured years of untold stories into compelling narratives, merging data with emotional weight, ensuring each page carried the pulse of her ancestry. This personal as political approach felt invigorating. She was no longer just a participant. She was engaging in a dialogue with her heritage, pushing boundaries and reshaping expectations. By morning, Clara's proposal felt electric. She had formulated her strategy with intent, aligning the legacy she unearthed with her professional ambitions. This entanglement with her past no longer felt like a burden. It was a treasure trove of experience and power. But as she looked over her work, a sliver of doubt crept in. Would Ben and Alex see the value of authenticity framed through such a personal lens? Would her unwavering dedication to her ancestry diminish the professional polish they expected? Clara could picture their skeptical expressions, a tableau of disbelief and judgment. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, she reminded herself of her ancestors' resolve. The battle was not just within herself, but propelled by a longing to honor those who laid the groundwork for her own aspirations. The fear of judgment paled in comparison to the urgency of telling these untold stories. As Clara prepared to present her proposal to the team, a deep conviction settled over her. She was willing to risk professional backlash in the name of authenticity and represent the voiceless. This was not just a professional endeavor. It was a continuation of a woman's fight for freedom and recognition. The moment approached, and as she stepped into the room for the meeting, Clara felt the gravity of her ancestor behind her, an unseen guiding force. Would her team recognize the value of a heart truly aligned with purpose? Would they embrace her ancestry-infused vision, or cast it aside for conventional measures? The lines were drawn, and Clara was ready to confront them, aware that the very essence of her identity and ambition hung in the balance. Let's see if they are open to this new narrative, she thought, adrenaline surging as the door swung open. The room was eerily quiet as Clara stepped in, the fluorescent lights casting an unforgiving glare on her meticulously prepared presentation. The air felt thick with anticipation as her colleagues, Ben and Alex, exchanged questioning glances. The unwavering confidence she had felt moments before wavered under their scrutiny. Clara took a deep breath, grounding herself in the purpose that had sparked her creativity. She glanced at the screen where her slides glinted in the harsh lighting, images and data intertwined with evocative family narratives. Each element told a story, echoing the struggles and triumphs of those who had come before her. "Thank you for meeting with me today," Clara began, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of nervous energy. "I wanted to share a project that combines our strategic goals with a personal perspective inspired by my family's history." Ben leaned back, arms crossed, skepticism etched on his face. Alex's expression was more neutral, but Clara could sense the weight of expectation bearing down on her. She pressed on, driven by the urgency to connect. As she navigated through her slides, Clara felt the stories seep into the atmosphere. She spoke of her ancestors' sacrifices, powerful enough to evoke empathy even within her professional stalwart colleagues. She detailed how these narratives could enrich their initiatives, providing depth and authenticity that transcended traditional measures of success. Her heart raced as she reached the pivotal part of her presentation, the segment illustrating how these personal narratives were not merely sentimental, but strategic. Clara illustrated with precision how intertwining these histories could lead to more profound connections with their target audience, and ultimately, greater engagement and loyalty. Yet, just as she began to feel the momentum of her argument, Ben interrupted, his voice cutting through the hopeful undercurrent. "Clara, don't get me wrong. I appreciate where you're coming from, but does this really align with our corporate objectives? Can we quantify the impact of such emotional narratives?" A tightening knot formed in Clara's stomach, sensing her carefully woven arguments unraveling. "It's about more than just numbers, Ben," she responded, fighting to maintain her composure. "This is about authenticity. Companies that connect on a human level stand out in today's market. My family's history is a testament to resilience and hope, qualities our brand could embody." Silence engulfed the room, each moment stretching like elastic as Clara peered into their expressions, searching for a spark of understanding or a flicker of resistance. She felt a surge of defiance rising within her. This was not merely about her proposal, but about all those whose stories had been silenced. A flicker of realization crossed Alex's face as she shifted in her seat. "Clara, are you suggesting that personal stories can drive strategy and engagement?" Her voice held an edge of curiosity, a slight crack in the armor of conventional thought. "Exactly!" Clara seized the opening, her voice gaining strength. "These stories foster connection. By sharing authentic narratives, we don't just create marketing content, we cultivate loyalty." As Clara spoke, she realized that it was not just the proposal on the line, but her commitment to honoring her roots, her past intertwined with her future. The stakes had never felt higher, yet within that tension, Clara discovered a renewed resolve. She was fighting not only for her vision, but for a legacy. "Let's take a leap," she concluded, her voice ringing with conviction. "Let's show that authenticity can elevate our mission in ways metrics alone cannot." Their eyes narrowed as thought played across their features. Thus, the battle of ideation had turned into an impromptu dialogue of possibilities. It was then Clara recognized the burgeoning tension of a deeper conflict brewing beneath the surface, one that extended beyond this room. The feeling was palpable. What if her colleagues weren't just hesitant about her proposal? What if they were grappling with their own insecurities, their own frustrations tied to expectations of professionalism that stifled innovation? As Clara left the room, the door closing behind her with a heavy thud, her heart pounded, not with fear, but with hope. Something had sparked within her, a drive toward the unknown yet to be defined. She could feel the whispers of ancestors urging her forward. As she stepped into the hallway, Clara's mind was racing. This was just the beginning. Would she galvanize her colleagues' support or lose herself in a sea of doubt? The potential ramifications of her next move made her pulse quicken. The real challenge awaited, lurking just on the horizon, pressing her closer to an exhilarating revelation. The next phase of her journey beckoned, teasing hints of further exploration within both her profession and her identity. Would she be able to navigate this complex landscape, balancing authenticity with professional demands, or would it ultimately lead to a reckoning she wasn't prepared for? Clara stepped into the bustling office, the air humming with the vibrancy of conversations and the clatter of keyboards. As she navigated through the sea of desks, she felt the weight of her previous encounters still hovering over her. The skepticism she had faced told her that the path ahead would be anything but smooth. Yet a quiet resolve began to take shape within her. Now was not the time for retreat. Sitting at her own desk, Clara took a moment to center herself. She opened her laptop and began to draft a follow-up email to Ben and Alex. It was crucial to extend their previous conversation, to clarify her vision with precision. As she typed, she framed her words to not only address their doubts, but to connect her family's legacy with their company's core values more explicitly. Emphasizing authenticity not just as a concept, but a strategy, she thought, her fingers moving rhythmically across the keyboard. The email became a conduit through which Clara translated her fervor for storytelling into actionable ideas. She suggested a series of workshops where the team could engage with the narratives of customers, allowing them to participate in this journey of leveraging personal stories to humanize their brand. With each keystroke, Clara felt empowered. Drafting that email required her not merely to sell an idea, but to stand firm in her belief that genuine narratives could transform the way they approach their work. She was becoming a catalyst, challenging the status quo instead of conforming to it. Once the email was sent, Clara took a breath and scanned the office. The vibrant energy around her mirrored her burgeoning determination. Colleagues are animatedly discussing projects, and amidst it, she spotted Alex animatedly debating with a team member. Clara felt a nudge of instinct. If she could harness the interest sparked in Alex during her presentation, perhaps she could cultivate allies within this environment. Clara approached the discussion, her heart pounding as she interrupted with a polite, "Can I add something?" The group turned toward her, eyes flicking to Alex for approval. The slight nod she received only fueled Clara's confidence. "Alex, you brought up a valid point earlier," Clara began, grounding her argument in what they had just discussed. "What if we reframed our client outreach to include more personal stories? Imagine how that could enrich our campaigns. It's more than just marketing. It's about forging relationships built on trust." The room felt charged with possibility. Heads nodded, and Clara recognized the shift. Her voice was being heard. Alex chimed in, urging the team to consider how emotional engagement could indeed bolster their projects. Clara seized the moment, sharing snippets from her family history as case studies illustrating how deeply resonant narratives can transform perceptions. In that instant, Clara was no longer just advocating for her proposal. She was walking the tightrope of her own growth, convinced that she could bridge the gap between personal and professional spheres. While the doubts that initially clung to her began to dissipate, another realization struck her. With every ally made, there also existed the potential for opposition. Once the discussion concluded, Clara felt exhilarated. But in that elation crept a sliver of uncertainty. If she was to become a voice for the authentic, would she also need to confront those who were comfortable with the status quo? Would those defenses rise against her as she ventured further into uncharted territories? The afternoon unfolded into a series of strategic meetings where Clara felt her resolve harden. Yet, with every step forward, she sensed shadows of resistance looming, not just from her colleagues, but perhaps within herself. Was she truly prepared for the battles ahead? As she left the office for the day, her heart raced with both trepidation and excitement. Clara knew that the next phase would require more than just a voice. It would demand courage, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to her vision. The real question now was whether she would have the strength to face the pushback that might emerge from her newfound determination. The moment of confrontation loomed closer, and Clara could already feel the challenge ahead. Would she courageously stand her ground, or would she falter and let her vision slip away? As the following days unfurled, Clara became acutely aware of a shift within her workplace and within herself. Each encounter with her colleagues felt heavy with expectations. After her proactive contributions in the meeting, their perception of her had changed. However, the whispered skepticism remained, sometimes masked as polite inquiry. Introductions to new campaigns were framed in cautious tones, and while some welcomed her input, others seemed to probe for weaknesses in her increasingly vocal stance on authenticity. She found herself aligned with Alex more frequently, their discussions weaving through the intricate threads of brand identity and audience connection. Clara appreciated his respect for her ideas and the nuances he added. Yet, each time they shared a laugh or an epiphany, a voice inside her echoed the fear of impending isolation. Would standing her ground ultimately sever ties with those who were resistant to her vision? In a moment of introspection, Clara took a walk in the park during her lunch break. As sunlight filtered through the leaves, she wondered about the power of her own narrative. Growing up, Clara had often been overshadowed by the achievements of her illustrious family. Yet, as she sat on a bench, the realization crystallized. Her story was unique and powerful in its own right. This acknowledgement began to shape her approach. She allowed herself to embrace the fullness of her background, learning to see it not as a burden, but as a badge of resilience. Reinvigorated, Clara returned to work with newfound determination. She initiated an informal brainstorming session, inviting those who had expressed interest in her ideas. The atmosphere was charged, combining enthusiasm with an undercurrent of tension. She could almost feel the battlefield she was stepping into. Those who had been supportive of her vision gathered, eager to explore the potential of storytelling as a marketing strategy. Yet Clara sensed a subtle tension from others in the room. They watched with crossed arms, eyes narrowed in judgment. "Let's focus on how we can create emotional connections," she proposed, welcoming both supporters and skeptics alike. With expertise and sincerity guiding her words, she described how customer stories were not merely content, they were gateways to trust and loyalty. Yet, even as she spoke, she could feel the eyes of one of the senior executives, Brian, burning into her. His discomfort rippled through the group as she introduced the idea of aligning their brand with more personal, vulnerable narratives. Clara pressed onward, answering questions and allaying concerns raised by others. "Let's not forget," she said passionately, "that brands built on authenticity can cultivate communities, not just customers." As skepticism rippled through the group, she battled a sense of isolation that nudged at her. Would Brian, who represented the status quo, undermine her efforts? The room began to feel increasingly adversarial, but Clara anchored herself to her conviction. "I know change is challenging," she continued, her voice steadier now. "But our real strength lies in being relatable. Stories can foster genuine connections that traditional strategies could never achieve." Clara locked eyes with Brian, holding his challenging gaze. She refused to let fear dictate her narrative. Just as Clara felt the tide of the discussion shift in her favor, Brian interjected, his tone dripping with skepticism. "And how do you intend to measure success with this sentimental approach? Isn't it risky to wander away from traditional metrics?" Clara's heart raced, but she felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the confrontation she had anticipated. Answers rushed through her mind, strategies lined up like soldiers ready for battle. She realized that this moment would define not just her proposal, but her professional identity. Taking a deep breath, Clara prepared to defend her vision, not just for the sake of the campaign, but for her own growth. Meeting Brian's gaze, she quietly resolved, this was not merely about selling a project, it was a defining moment in her journey. She was ready. But as she began to construct her counterargument, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Would she emerge victorious from this confrontation, or falter beneath the weight of established norms? Clara stood at a pivotal crossroads, the echo of Brian's skepticism reverberating in her ears, while a whirlwind of emotions surged through her. This was her chance to redefine what was possible, not just for herself, but for the company that had unwittingly become a platform for her voice. The stakes felt monumental, but beneath the weight of doubt, a fierce determination coursed through her. "I appreciate your concern, Brian," Clara began, her voice imbued with confidence. "But what we often underestimate is the power of storytelling backed by data. If we can measure engagement and emotional resonance through customer feedback and brand affinity, we can quantify success just as we have with traditional metrics." She felt the room shift, murmurs rippling at her suggestion. Perhaps they were waking up to the potential she envisioned. Brian raised an eyebrow, the fight ignited in his stance. "But how do you plan to maintain our brand integrity while exploring these narratives? Emotional content can sometimes overshadow the fundamental aspects of what we do." Clara's conviction surged. She had anticipated resistance, realizing it was a necessary part of the journey. Integrity lies at the heart of authenticity. We can align our brand values with these stories. By curating narratives that resonate with our audience, we build trust, not only with them, but also among our team members and stakeholders. This is about creating a community rather than just transactional relationships. The passion behind her words began to bridge the gap between opposing perspectives. Clara noticed slight nods from some colleagues. The foundation for potential alliances was solidifying. Yet Brian's gaze remained piercing, a challenge that ignited her resolve even more. What you're suggesting is change, Clara, but ideation has to be backed by actionable plans. How do you see this working in practice? His challenge hit hard, but Clara welcomed it. Let's initiate a pilot project, Clara proposed, her brows furrowing in thought but opening up her heart. We can gather data from participating customers, conducting interviews to extract their stories. It could be as simple as a customer satisfaction questionnaire that includes space for personal experiences. Then we analyze the engagement levels, conversions, and feedback metrics during and after this initiative. The silence in the room thickened, anticipation simmering as colleagues absorbed her words. We'll keep our traditional metrics as control measures while testing out these new methods in parallel. Clara felt her pulse quicken. This was the moment she had crafted in her mind, the culmination of her transformative journey. "I don't know," Brian said, skepticism still lacing his tone. "It seems risky. What if we fail?" Clara held her ground as vulnerability surged. She understood that failure was inevitable on the road to greatness. "What if we succeed?" she countered, locking her gaze onto Brian's. "Risk is part of innovation, and through it, we discover new avenues for growth. Trust me, cultivating authentic connections will yield results, even if the metrics evolve." Alex's voice chimed in, soft yet firm. "Clara makes an excellent point. We need to embrace the potential for failure because we cannot grow without it. I believe this initiative could set us apart from our competitors." The shift in dynamics was palpable as others began to rally behind Clara's vision. Yet the moment of clarity did not erase Clara's lingering doubts. As the room simmered with budding approval, she recognized how intertwined her journey was with the legacy of her ancestors. This was a symbiotic dance of courage, innovation, and the fortitude to own her voice. After the meeting concluded, Clara felt lighter, but there was still work to do. In the days that followed, the weight of her family's legacy bore on her choices. Had she honored them sufficiently through her path? Discovering her ancestors had not been merely an act of nostalgia. It awakened a generational mission which Clara now embodied. As the pilot project started, Clara diligently implemented her proposal, observing tangible engagement metrics that exceeded initial expectations. The blend of personal storytelling with qualitative analysis allowed her results to speak volumes, countering skeptics, including Brian, who began to tentatively acknowledge the merit in her approach. Clara thrived as an empowered player in the shifting landscape of her company. Her journey through tentative steps towards her vision had transformed belief not only in herself, but in her team. When she presented the results during the final review meeting, Clara's heart surged with pride. Not just in her work, but in the newfound daring spirit reflected in the room. Recognizing how far she had come felt liberating. Clara was no longer just a maid in the shadows, but an influential partner reshaping the narrative around her name. She had embraced her multifaceted identity as a woman of resilience, transforming challenges into stepping stones for growth. With every commendation she received, Clara felt the light of validation soak her spirit. It echoed across the fragile history of her past, affirming that her journey mattered. Her ancestors' dreams propelled her forward, invigorating her soul to conquer the paths less traveled. Within this process of flourishing, the familial secrets revealed themselves as treasures rather than burdens. Each layer uncovered fueled her purpose, and in that moment of revelation, she yearned to share her journey with others, inspiring them to uncover their own untold stories. As Clara leaned back in her chair that evening, contentment washed over her. She had tested her limits and surpassed preconceived boundaries, finally earning recognition for her contributions. The journey had paved the road to not only personal growth, but professional evolution. Astounded by the change, Clara vowed to continually advocate for authenticity within her organization and beyond, standing firm against complacency lest it strive to overshadow the luminescence of genuine connection. Her legacy was not solely a reflection of her battles won, but the community she could inspire through embracing her whole self. In that moment of triage, where potential intertwines with aspiration, Clara found her true voice. She was no longer lost between the worlds of heritage and ambition. She was now a force, ready to navigate the uncharted waters of professional impact with authentic grace. And just like that, her journey wasn't just about seizing opportunities, but transforming lives, hers included. Clara Williams had not only changed her narrative, but had become a beacon of empowerment for those who dared to dream amidst shadows. Now was the moment to step forward, and she wouldn't wait for anyone else to join her. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our purpose. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this life-transforming story. Each action you take restores faith in overcoming adversity through authenticity and resilience.